January 5. U.S. military intelligence suspects a possible North Korean invasion of South Korea, with reports suggesting it could occur as early as March. Also on January 5, in France, the BCG vaccine against tuberculosis becomes mandatory for vulnerable groups. January 6. The United Kingdom, followed by Norway, Denmark, and Ceylon. Now Sri Lanka officially recognizes the People's Republic of China. January 10. At the United Nations, a motion to replace the Chinese delegation with that of the People's Republic of China is rejected by a vote of 8-2. The Soviet representative storms out of the meeting. January 13. The Soviet ambassador to the UN threatens to block all international institutions in response to the January 10 vote. The American embassy in Beijing is occupied by communist sympathizers. The January 14, the U.S. decides to evacuate its remaining 135 diplomats following the events of January 13. January 17, a robbery at the Brinks armored car company in Boston captures public attention. $2 million is stolen. The 11 perpetrators will be caught in 1956, just days before the crime statute of limitations expires. January 18, the People's Republic of China officially recognizes the Democratic Republic of Vietnam and provides military support. January 23, Israel moves its capital from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. January 24, India adopts its constitution. January 26, Rajendra Prasad becomes India's first president. Also on January 26, in France, a commission of inquiry is established regarding the general's affair. January 29, Bao Dai loses his title as Emperor of Vietnam and becomes head of state following a French decision. Also on January 29, the Ku Klux Klan experiences a resurgence. January 30, North Korean leader Kim Il-sung receives support from Stalin and Mao for the upcoming invasion of South Korea. January 31, the U.S. officially announces its pursuit of hydrogen bomb technology. The USSR recognizes Communist Vietnam. Scientific breakthrough. January 30. Demonstration of the pilot A.C.E. at Burlington House, London. In the prestigious setting of the Royal Society at Burlington House, the public demonstration of the pilot A.C.E. automatic computing engine takes place, one of Britain's first electronic computers. The project was initially conceived by Alan Turing, the founding father of modern computing, during his time at the National Physical Laboratory, NPL, just after the war. Although Turing left the project in 1947, he laid its theoretical foundations, inspired by his concept of a universal machine. The prototype, presented more modest than the original design, was developed under the supervision of James H. Wilkinson between 1948 and 1950. Despite its limitations, the pilot A.C.E. remains a major milestone in computing history. Fast for its time, it significantly influenced British scientific computing research. Significant book. Published in 1950, Norbert Wiener's The Human Use of Human Beings. Alongside the first computer prototypes, Norbert Wiener, a founder of Cybernetics, publishes The Human Use of Human Beings. The book popularizes ideas born in laboratories. Machines are not just tools but entities capable of exchanging information, adapting, and even mimicking certain human behaviors. Wiener describes a society where feedback becomes central, control shifts from vertical to circular, and machines could one day contribute to human decision-making. In 1950, this marks the start of a quiet revolution, both in minds and in laboratories. Cinema and television. At the start of the year, Samson and Delilah, Cecil B. DeMille's biblical epic, dominates American screens. Released in December 1949 with a $3 million budget, the film becomes a resounding success, grossing $25 million. It tells the story of Samson from the Book of Judges, cementing the rise of Hollywood's spectacular and religious epics compared to more modest Italian productions. January 7, 1950, audiences meet Little Quacker, an endearing yellow duckling with a distinctive quack, in a namesake short from MGM Studios. This marks the first appearance of this secondary character, who quickly becomes a recurring figure in the Tom and Jerry series. Created by William Hanna and Joseph Barbera in 1940, Tom and Jerry is at its peak by 1950. 7 Oscars, dozens of successful shorts, and global popularity. Its silent, universal humor, based on physical rivalry and cartoonish excess, captivates all audiences. Little Quacker brings a new dynamic to the series. Unlike the cunning and triumphant Jerry, the duckling embodies fragile innocence. Often persecuted by Tom, he evokes sympathy and sets up new gags. His childish babble, naivety, and instant bond with Jerry add a tender touch to the typically slapstick universe. In January 1950, Walt Disney doesn't introduce Donald Duck, who debuted in 1934's, but rather a new secondary character in Donald's universe, Louie the Mountain Lion. This dim-witted, perpetually hungry mountain lion makes his first appearance in the cartoon Lion Around, released on the January 20. By this time, Donald Duck is already a superstar. Since his debut in 1934's The Wise Little Hen, he has won over audiences with his explosive personality, unmistakable voice voiced by Clarence Nash, and role as a grumpy, unlucky everyman facing his nephew's daily mishaps, or even Mickey himself. In the 1940s, Donald became Disney's most used character, notably in wartime propaganda shorts. Lion Around marks a new chapter in Donald's cartoons. For the first time, a burlesque animal antagonist enters the scene, Louie, a starving lion who tries to trick Donald by disguising himself as a baby bird. This absurd plot, combined with Disney's expressive animation of the era, delights audiences. While Louie doesn't become as recurring as Chip and Dale or the Beagle Boys, he reflects this period when Disney experimented with comedic dynamics around Donald at the height of his popularity. Music. Topping the U.S. charts is Bing Crosby's Merry Christmas, a seasonal album that extends its success beyond the holidays. However, the true hit of the month is I Can Dream, Can't I? By the Andrews Sisters. The song dominates all charts. It's the most played in clubs, the most requested on jukeboxes, and the top seller in record stores. It perfectly captures the vocal style of the era. Rich female harmonies, subtle instrumental backing, and a dreamy yet elegant atmosphere. You can enjoy it through the curated January 1950 playlist available online. In France, one of the year's biggest hits is Cerisier Roses et Pommiers Blancs, sung by André Claveau. It's the French adaptation of Cherry Pink and Apple Blossom White, an Anglo-Saxon melody later popularized in the US. A perfect example of how songs traveled and changed languages along the way. In Germany, one of the most hummed tunes is a Capri-Fischer, a nostalgic ode to Italy sung by Rudi Churiqui. In the Spanish-speaking world, Pedro Infante melts hearts with Amorcito Corazon, a romantic anthem that became iconic. Comics. Shum, January 1950 marks the end of Lil Folks, the weekly comic strip drawn by Charles M. Schulz for the St. Paul Pioneer Press since 1947. This series of short, humorous strips features children with adult-like reflections. It lays the groundwork for Schulz's style, particularly for a little boy named Charlie Brown. A few months later, this character will be reborn in Peanuts. Victoria Principal, January 3rd. American actress and producer, she rose to fame in the 1980s for her role in the TV series Dallas. Alec Jeffreys, January 9, British geneticist who revolutionized criminal investigations by inventing DNA fingerprinting in 1984. Gilles Villeneuve, January 18, Canadian Formula One driver with a spectacular style. He left a lasting mark on Ferrari before his tragic death during a race in 1982. Billy Ocean, January 21, British singer. Born in Trinidad and Tobago, he achieved international success in the 1980s with hits like Caribbean Queen. Richard Dean Anderson, January 23, American actor globally known for his iconic role as MacGyver, a cult character of the 1980s. Daniel Auteuil, January 24, French actor who became a leading figure in French cinema, excelling in both drama and comedy. Jörg Haider, January 26, Austrian politician who became a controversial figure in European far-right politics during the 1990s. Joseph Schumpeter, January 8, economist. Joseph Schumpeter, a theorist of capitalism and innovation, passed away at age 66 in the United States. Originally from Austria, he left a significant mark during the interwar period with his original thinking, often at odds with the dominant Keynesian ideas. Schumpeter is renowned for his concept of creative destruction, describing how technological progress continually disrupts existing economic structures. He saw entrepreneurs as the central figures in capitalism, driving both innovation and instability. In 1942, in Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy, he predicted that capitalism might not collapse, but could fade into a bureaucratized society. Admired for his erudition, style, and clarity, he left a major body of work still studied in economics faculties worldwide. His death came as the global economy entered a new era of growth, one he would not live to witness. George Orwell, January 21. George Orwell, born Eric Arthur Blair, died at 46 from tuberculosis in London. His death came just months after the publication of 1984, a novel that cemented his status as an essential literary and political figure. Resolutely anti-fascist and deeply anti-totalitarian, Orwell fought with the Republicans during the Spanish Civil War, an experience he chronicled in Homage to Catalonia. A lucid observer of the excesses of both the left and the right, he remained unclassifiable, a committed socialist yet fiercely opposed to authoritarian communist regimes. His literary and journalistic work, marked by sharp clarity, championed truth against propaganda and individual freedom against oppressive systems. In 1945, Animal Farm, a political fable inspired by the Russian Revolution, became a massive success. However, it is 1984, a chilling dystopia about a surveilled, falsified, and perpetually rewritten world that became his most enduring legacy. Through Big Brother, Newspeak, and the Ministry of Truth, Orwell coined concepts that resonated throughout the 20th century and beyond. Orwell passed away without knowing the profound impact his work would have on generations of readers, dissidents, and critical thinkers. In January 1950, Orwell left the physical world, but entered intellectual history irrevocably.